Hello folks, back again with the Ancient Egyptian Book of Two Ways. Um, this is the Book of Two Ways of, I forget the name, Unas or no, it's like, I think this is a woman's, and this is General Sepi's, and this is Jehudi Hotep's. So yeah, they show him like with west as up, as opposed, at least vis-a-vis the hieroglyphs. So, that's like north is here, Greenland, Baffin Island, Alaska Peninsula, and then down here is like South America, Tierra del Fuego, etc., Amazon River. So this is General Sepi's map. So General Sepi was one of the top people in Egypt. He was during the Middle Kingdom, so very early Egypt, 4,000 years ago. And, he was one of the pharaoh's like right-hand generals. So he may have actually helped to create this map himself by, voyaging out, exploring. And so let's see, what is this? So like in the Book of Two Ways here, in Sepi's Book of Two Ways, Alaska Peninsula is called Sad Voice, or sometimes it's translated as Miserable of Voice, or something like that, but some variation on like Sad Voice. And the way is there, he basically looks like just the Alaska Peninsula, which sticks out, or sticks kind of like, this map is not north. I think north is this way. So this is like a different orientation. Yeah, I think north is this way, south is this way. So, I was thinking basically that that he must be this, his little body sticking out must be this peninsula, and his head must be this, or this whole thing, or something. And that may well be true, but it seems that he's also, or may be entirely retrograde instead. Like a lot of these are flipped inside out. Like this one is flipped, this one is flipped, and this one is flipped. So it would make sense that this one would also be flipped. This one is not flipped. The East Coast, New York, Virginia area is not flipped, but a lot of them are retrograde. So yeah, it seems that the Alaska Peninsula might be retrograde. And now I'm thinking that actually part of it, especially in the Sepi version, might be like this, where, that this is his face, because it has this shape where it goes like, just like goes like this, and then there's just flat, like from his chin to his nose is just flat, and then it just goes back to his hair and his eyes and whatever. So that tells me that maybe this is that flat part right here, and this is where it goes back, and then this is the hair. And of course, this does look a bit more like hair up here. And then this is his tail. It just kind of curls around differently than in here. But, and then this is his knife, which is actually this island right off the coast there, Nunivak. But it's just zoomed in because that's that's part of the impediments to navigation. So, I think that's part of it, at least for the Sepi map. But I'm not sure that this predates the Sepi map. This could be a new configuration, because, you could say that this is kind of a sad voice, like that you could kind of say that looks like this river here looks kind of like a frown. And then maybe, yeah, I don't know how you could kind of say something like that. But the better identification, in my opinion, for that is actually Kodiak Island, which is right here. And together with the whole Alaska Peninsula, because the whole Alaska Peninsula, here it is. And, you can either, this is the Alaska Peninsula, or in some early definitions, this whole area is the Alaska Peninsula. But, this is basically like a, an elephant, or, something with a long nose and a frown, like a sad face. And then he's saying something. So the sad voice, I think this is hilarious. I don't know if you guys are into like ancient Egyptian humor, but to me this is funny because he's sad. I mean, I think I've already shown this somewhat, but I'm just going to show it better, that like he's sad and his voice is also sad. And like how that can be, I will try to illustrate here. Like, I mean, it's harder to see there, but basically he, I mean, you can see it a little bit there that this is Kodiak Island, so it's the voice coming out of the sad mouth, but he himself is also sad because he's crying. You can see tears coming down his cheek and rolling down his chin, and he's frowning. So, it's hard to really see it that well in this one, but so to me that's friggin' hilarious. Like that it's a sad voice because it's like a voice of us coming out of a sad mouth, and the voice itself is frowning and crying. So, I mean, I don't want Alaska to be too sad or anything, but it's pretty funny to me. So yeah, let's see, is this this is just Rio de Plata in the Book of Two Ways of Jehudi Hotep, where it actually shows his penis, which is this river here. I forget what it's called, but it screws up the tail because the tail is supposed to curve, like in Seppi's map, the tail curves around at the end. It curves back at the end so that it can, be like this. But yeah, so they kind of messed up the tail, but otherwise it's pretty good. At least they added the schlong onto there. This is from the Jehudi Hotep map, and this part up here is Baja California, and then this right here is the water. This is the, Gulf of California, the Sea of Cortez, and then just south of Baja is this kind of like peninsula that comes out and is surrounded by rivers. So, that can only be this, right? Which is, basically West Mexico, like Nayarit area or something, or I don't know. And so that's why I think that this gatekeeper here, even though he looks like the gatekeeper on Seppi's map, which is the Rio Grande River, he's actually seems to be on this map, the Lago Chapala, well, this is a zoom in on him. So he has two ears. So I think those are the two kind of like ears of Lago Chapala, Lake Chapala. And then I think his body, it's either the adjacent, Rio Grande de Santiago with its two branches there, or there's a chance it also includes these like adjacent bodies of water. Like there's a little body of water there that kind of looks like this, but I'm not sure if there's anything else that can exactly. Yeah, it could be. Maybe this is just his front leg, and then his body is just basically Rio Grande de Santiago. Who knows? It's not the easiest one, really. In the General Seppi's map, or pretty much all the maps, Baja California is labeled as turtle-like face, and so, you know, that makes sense because here it is. I mean, it looks like a certain type of turtle, like one with a pointy nose. So this is like an ancient turtle, probably prehistoric, you know, turtle, but there are still extant turtles that are similar to this. So that's like its face, you know, it has the pointy nose sticking up like that, like a spiny soft shell, and it has the bump for its eye because turtles have like these kind of bumps for their eyes. And then its mouth here, and then it has the shell. So the shell starts like right here, and it goes to here, and at least to there. That's all these sandbars that are just like are along this coast like no other. So, you know, that makes perfect sense. And then these things down here could be like his legs and stuff. So yeah, that's one where you can pretty much recognize it just on its own, just via the name. This is the map that these maps seem to have been based on. So this is 5,500 years old. And, you know, it shows America, Greenland, you know, Hudson Bay, Florida, Baja California, Gulf of Mexico, Yucatan Peninsula, Central America, and South America, and all that. Africa, China, Southeast Asia, Korea, Eastern Siberia, Kamchatka Peninsula, and then basically northern Siberia, northern Russia, and maybe some little parts of Europe over here. So yeah, it's basically not a complete global map, but it encompasses a lot of the globe. This is from that map, and she's right there. So I think that this, you know, shape right here, since it's the same color as all these land masses, there's a good chance that's Atlantis, because there's not a lot else it can be. You know, it seems like this boat is right under Iceland, and so this is something else that's in the middle of the Atlantic, basically. So I think that's Atlantis, basically the Azores, like when the Azores were bigger, and before the 400 feet rise in sea level at the end of the Ice Age. And I'm not sure what this signifies. This might be Venus or, you know, Isis. I'm not sure what that is. And so, and in this map, it shows a peninsula sticking out, or kind of like an island attached to South America on the west coast. So that's the main difference, other than just the coast being wider. Like Florida was much wider back then. You know, all the Florida Keys were all part of the mainland and stuff. But this guy, you know, I was wondering, is that Easter Island? I'm not exactly sure, but its placement suggests to me that it's connected to this, which is like right here. These are the I don't know, I forget what these are friggin' called, but it's like an archipelago with a bunch of islands on it. So, wow. Is this normal? Like, okay. Like trying to find the cursor and it like disappears. Okay. So yeah, here's a zoom in on part of the map. So here's like Antarctic Peninsula. Here's China, Korea. This is like Southeast Asia. This might be like Kalimantan or something, or even Australia, or I don't know. Hard to know what all this is. I'm guessing these are all like Southeast Asian islands, you know, like Papua and Sumatra, Java, Kalimantan, New Zealand, Australia type of area, but who knows. And these are probably, or there's a good chance these are the Falklands right here. Yeah. So they already had this system of using boats as parts of maps to symbolize things before, 5,500 years ago. This, of course, is inside out. Like, the original map is retrograde. So this one I haven't flipped. Like this one, I flipped to look like a bird's eye view, which modern people are more used to. But the original was like a modern Antipodes map because this is an ancient Antipodes map. So they flip everything retrograde. And so this one's still flipped retrograde. That's why Africa's on this side and China's on that side of America. Let's see. Like this shows Japan. This seems to be, Honshu, Hokkaido, and Kyushu and all this stuff. Just north of Korea. And these guys, I think, are just, I don't know. I kind of suspect these are Isis and Nephthys, like maybe Isis and Nephthys, but who knows? Maybe it's also something terrestrial. Okay, this is a good one. I finally figured out this guardian. In the maps, it says that the gatekeeper of Western South America is called He Who Gains by Robbery. So I wasn't able to immediately recognize that, but anyway, I finally found who he is. So it's this guy. So it's basically the estuary, the Guayaquil Estuary that's between, basically divides like Peru and Ecuador. Like all these are mostly modern day borders because they're just natural borders. So yeah, he's like, there's his two eyes and his two arms and he's like holding this big bag of loot and he's fucking hightailing it. He's like running his ass off. So, glad I finally found him. This just shows more the sad voice. He's a voice because he's coming out of a sad mouth, but he's also got his little frown and he's like crying. His tears are coming down his cheek and running down his chin and stuff. So I think that's funny that their nomenclature, that it's sad voice because it's actually a guy coming out of a mouth with a frown on. Like, I will never stop laughing at that joke. I like ancient humor. I mean, I don't know exactly if it was meant to be funny, but I'm sure a lot of this was that they at least appreciated the humor in it. So this one is something from the Book of Two Ways. It's like from from the Hyrcompolitan map. So it's from right where the basically from where Britain is. I can find this thing. Impossible. So it's like right up, yeah, it's right here. So it's basically where Britain would be, you know, northeast of the Azores and southeast of, well, I don't know. Anyway, I think there's at least a solid chance that the characters there are the British Isles because of the similarity to the British Isles in the later Book of Two Ways of Jehudi Hotep. So this is, this is Britain holding Ireland and then kind of taming, or maybe, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, he has these three archipelagos in front of him, which are basically Shetland, Orkney, and Hebrides. But I think that this is based on a misunderstanding of the original, because this, this is 4,000 years old. This is 5,500 years old. So it's similar where, it's in this roughly the same part of the map where the British Isles are. And it's somebody holding a thing with three things in front of him. So that to me is already a huge coincidence that suggests a possible same identity. But as I look at it, I realize that there's a good chance what he's holding is actually this, basically the Greater Hebrides, and that's his like cudgel or whatever. That's his like stick that he's like beating Ireland with. Nothing changes, right? Shit. Anyway, so yeah, Britain was beating the crap out of Ireland since day one, apparently. But the reason I think that Ireland is these three is because look at these three. That's like the only feature of Ireland. Like on this side, Ireland's relatively nondescript. It kind of has a bump here, little bump there, but it's not that much. Whereas on the west side, it really has these three distinct branches or peninsulas or whatever. And these are, completely, they were, politically separate. They were thought of as separate in ancient times. This is Ulster, this is Connacht, and this is Munster. These are three of the main provinces of Ireland. So I'm pretty sure that Britain there is holding up the Greater Hebrides, and because it's the same shape, like it's like a curve, skinny on one end, curved, and then wider on the other end. So here it is, skinny, curved, wider on that end. And then I think that his hand that's holding one of these guys is Argyll, where my mom's ancestors are from here, which actually is shaped. It's hard to see it here, but it's actually bends. It's like shaped like a bent arm like this. And it basically touches Ulster. I mean, it probably did touch Ulster, or yeah, pretty sure it did touch Ulster at one point, like 10,000 years ago or something. But even 5,500 years ago, it may have either touched it or may have even at least been a lot closer than it even is now. Like even now you can see Ulster from Argyll, you can see Argyll from Ulster. So anyway, it just seems that these cartographers confused this tradition, and since they didn't see three, they were expecting to see three islands, and since they didn't see three islands, they figured it must be referring to these three distinct archipelagos, Shetland, Orkney, and Hebrides, which makes sense. It's a very reasonable supposition, but it may mean that they basically altered its identity. And so they changed Ireland into the thing, they switched Ireland with the Greater Hebrides, and then they switched those three sections of Ireland with Shetland, Orkney, and the Hebrides. So yeah, That's what I think is the case. And let's see. 24. So yeah, there's the sad voice. Poor little guy. It's the guardian of Canada, basically, Western Canada at least. See, here's something where I was just, I found like a man that was in Hornos Island. What is this? Oh, yeah. Hornos Island. It's not actually Hornos Island. That was just stuck on the search bar for some reason. Let's see. So here's something important. Like, this is labeled in the ancient Egyptian map as he who's basically hippopotamian face. And this again shows the kind of errors made in the game of telephone that went on for thousands of years, because this name was erroneously applied to Cuba by Insepi's map. And it was only the later map of Jehudi Hotep which tried to, basically fix all the errors. So Jehudi Hotep's map went back to the retrograde system of the 5,500-year-old map. And so by doing that, it probably was able to correct a lot of errors. But it still doesn't really, well, actually, this part is erased. So all it does is label the name right where, this is Nova Scotia. So, and maybe, I guess, Prince Edward Island or something. So yeah, there's Nova Scotia, New Brunswick or something. So it is hippopotamian, this is its hippopotamian face, this is its ears. It looks like some comic book I think I used to read with a hippo in it. But yeah, so I'm not even sure whether, I don't think Jehudi Hotep's map got his shape right. They just got his location right. Because Jehudi Hotep was using a different orientation than this orientation. It was using like I don't know, not the same east-west, north-south orientation. So, and then next to it is this one, which he shows, but he shows it not like this, but he at least gets the name right, that this is Newfoundland, but it's called He Whose Face is Dog-like, which Seppi's map applies to Hispaniola, understandably, because Hispaniola is also dog-like in its shape. And also because he was going from a different orientation, so he wouldn't have recognized this. But if you go with, I guess it's south as up, then you see these things. Because south is up for most of the, stuff in Jehudi Hotep's Afro-Eurasian map, and it seems to be true for at least some of the stuff in the original American gatekeepers. So yeah, obviously like lower lip, nose, eye, ears. All right, I think my phone's about to cut me off, but I'll see what else I can show. Marajo Island. So yeah, these are the elements of the avatar for the Amazon River estuary and the Marajo archipelago. It's like Ilha Caviana is like the face of the avatar, and like Ilha Janauk or whatever is like his neck. And this is his ear, is Ilha das Pacas. So, just if you're curious about these names, Tecuma, See, here's a part of Cuba that looks like it looks like the Plato's description of Atlantis's port. So I don't know if it means this is Atlantis's port or if it's just one of many places that are modeled on the same thing, just like Carthage was, seemingly. The type of circular port. Oh yeah, so this is this guy. Anyway, my phone seems to be cutting me off, so I'll just call it a day for now. But have a good one, and